You screamed, Gaijin listened, and they're giving you a response to your concerns. Now, I've read through this document here. The dev team replies to community feedback on the Sky Guardians update. And I agree with some things. I disagree on some things. But I want you to judge for yourself in the end. There will be a link in the description below. I'm going to read the one on the Pantsir S1 because I think that one has the least supported arguments for it. So I want to make sure I put Gaijin's words out there and not insert my words into their mouth. Then on the other ones, I'm going to go ahead and just give my summary, my impressions on it, because they're pretty straightforward. And I don't see, in many ways, I don't consider them near as controversial. So let's take a look at it and see what we got coming your way. By the way, I'm Old Deadman, your host. Let's jump straight into this dev blog on War Thunder's website and see what Gaijin has to say. And I quote, "The Pantsir S1 and other SAM vehicles. We noticed the concerns of the players about a possible imbalance due to the introduction of the Pantsir S1 surface-to-air missile system into the game, and we'll try to answer some questions about its operational modes details. The introduction of the Pantsir S1 was planned due to the fact that the 2S6 M1 Tunguska SPAAG is significantly inferior to the competition in terms of the combination of missile plus radar efficiency and has some of the worst statistics among all top-tier SPAGs in the game." Pause. I got to address this right here. The situation in which you bring in the Tunguska is far different than you would bring any other SPAA into the game. For instance, I'll pick on the ADATs. People bring the ADATs in as their first spawn. They use it because the missiles are effective against ground targets and it protects against an early helicopter spawn. You're unlikely to see the same thing from the 2S6 or the Tunguska because Russia has the best helicopters for an early spawn. They have the best aircraft for those areas where you can climb above the radar. They've got those direct counters to the ADATs and the other SPA in the game with very effective vehicles. And so you're unlikely to bring the Tunguska in the situation where you would win a game, so much as you're now down to your last spawn. You're running out of spawn points you've already lost, which would account for any statistical difference because of the vastly statistically different situation in which you're sitting. But that's my opinion on that argument. I had to stop there for it. Let's continue on with what Gaijin says. Some players also believe that instead of introducing the Pantsir S1, it was worth introducing the Tor M1 or Tor M2 systems. However, according to the game statistics, Tor M1 is also one of the efficiency outsiders in terms of efficiency and simply can't help to solve the issue of the late Soviet anti-aircraft lineup. Tor M2, both in terms of the number of missiles and, according to our research, in terms of the maneuverability of missiles, outmatches the Pantsir S1 at most distances. Its missiles, equipped with dual-mode, solid propellant rocket engines, maintain cruising speed for a longer period of time and provide an overload tolerance of up to 35 Gs. At the same time, the Pantsir's 95YA6 missile moves by inertia for most of its trajectory. At a distance of 8 kilometers, the missile is inferior to the 9M331 missile of the Tor M1 in terms of G tolerance, and at extreme distances, the 95YA6 overload drops to a poor 5G, which may provide sure kill of only non-maneuvering targets such as UAVs. The speed and characteristics and flight time at distances of up to 10 kilometers, the 95YA6 missile, are generally identical to the VT-1 missile with significantly less available overload tolerance. Players are also concerned about the possibility of the azimuth radar to operate in some radar modes at high elevation angles, which certainly is an undeniable advantage. But the Tor M1 radar, which is already present in the game, has an elevation coverage up to 64 degrees. In addition, we are conducting additional research on the capabilities of the radars of other anti-aircraft systems presented in the game, and if additional information is found, we'll specify their capabilities in the game. Pause. The Tor M1 coverage of up to 64 degrees, as I understand it, is actually in two sets of 32-degree angles. It can't actually scan the entire 64 degrees at the same time. That's my understanding. I am very likely to be wrong, as I've only been able to do a minimal amount of research on it. Even so, you end up with just being able to scan a portion of the sky, not that full 64 degrees at the same time. Continuing on. We are puzzled by players' concerns about the Pantsir's tracking radar operating in the microwave range, which is currently unable to be detected by the radiation warning systems. However, as practice shows, the telethermal search and track devices are the most effective tracking system in the top ranks, and the majority of SAM vehicles in the game are already capable of stealthy locking on target. In addition, the microwave target tracking radar of the Tor M1 does not statistically provide any superiority over competitors in the game. Also, we are monitoring concerns about the possibility of countering SAM Spag with such long-range missiles, but we believe that the transfer of missiles to the adjusted Sackler's physics will solve the problem, limiting the ability to hit high-speed targets at a high heading parameter or altitude. In addition, anti-aircraft guided missiles with semi-automatic command to line of sight are very sensitive to maneuver, and a minor trajectory change at high speed may be enough for any aircraft for an anti-missile maneuver. My translation, I should say. They don't see the problem with the radar because they don't see a problem with it. They say there's other options for stealthy locking on. But are there stealthy locking on options at an 18-kilometer range? That's my concern right there. Also, the bit about the Sackler's physics tells me that they've got an artificial nerf they're trying to apply. So I don't know how I feel about that. On the one hand, if you're going to add a system to the game, it should be accurate, at least mostly so. On the other hand, 18 kilometers? I mean, that's outside render range for most of it. So that's my real concern there. We'll see what this happens, but that is their response right there. What do you think of this one? Give me some comments below. Tell me what you think. Does this change your mind on the Pantsir S1? It doesn't change mine, but I want to see similar systems of some type added to the game, or similar counters that would at least put give a fighting chance for both sides. And that could be electronic countermeasures such as electronic warfare, jamming. It could be anti-radiation missiles. There's a variety of options there. But that's my thought process on it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'm not married to it either way, so you will not hurt my feelings by saying I'm wrong. All right, next one up, the F-16AJ, outfit and armament, and the Yak-141, also outfit and armament. These both have similar arguments attached, and just the difference being the exact circumstances. The F-16AJ, they're saying it was designed for export to Japan, and yes, it was. It's there. There were some obvious problems with it, like putting missiles in front of the landing gear bay doors, which they had to resolve. But there's a bunch of things here. They've got an F-16. It's not a paper plane. It's an F-16. It flew. We've got tons of the things. And this would just be a modification of it given to Japan. The nature of the weapons, on the other hand, they are saying these are things that were capable of the F-16 to carry, and if they had gone into service, they would have still been able to carry them. So that is why they chose those missiles and the equipment loadout for it. It's not a paper plane. It would never flew in this exact configuration because they would have used dummy equipment if they actually did a prototype of it. But in the end, this is a very understandable aircraft. It's not paper. It just has a different set of roundels and a few different changes that would have made it for the Japanese market. Similarly, why the Yak-141 never reached the point of going into service. It was tested. It was flown with dummy equipment in place of things like the radar and the RST and the weapons and things like that. The performance is well understood. The vehicles were actually available. They were actually flown, and the performance envelope of it is there. It's not a paper aircraft. It never was accepted into service, mainly because they ran out of money. That was part of the devblog. They ran out of money. But this is the equipment they would have installed if it had gone into service at the time it was in the running to be taken into service. That's their thought process. On both of these, I don't have much problem with them. The only problem being that I like it. I much prefer it if they stick with things that actually went into service, but I'm not married to that one either. Let me know what you think of this one in the comments below. Absolutely, give me your thoughts. Let's hit this one up. You can also hit them up in the videos for those two vehicles. Now the Ariete AMV War and PSO armor kits. In the Sky Guardians update, the Ariete AMV main battle tank will appear in the game in the PT-1 modification, featuring improved mobility and chassis durability. The tank has a more powerful engine compared to the basic versions. Based on player feedback, the model will be improved by the addition of smoke grenades. Also, the CL3142 APFSDS, which will replace the DM33, will be retained as the ammunition option along with the DM53 round. The Ariete AMV version with PSO and war armor kits will be implemented later as a separate vehicle in order to form an effective top-tier vehicle setup. Okay, this is pretty straightforward. They're giving you their exact justifications here. Adding the smoke grenades, or adding the DM53, and keeping the CL3142. And then the interesting one is that they're implementing the PSO and armor kits, war armor kits, as separate vehicles to give you a lineup. They recognize that the lineup at top tiers in Italy are not as robust as many of the other nations. By giving you another vehicle that you will admittedly have to grind out instead of as an armor kit, they will give you the option to set up a lineup of these vehicles so that you'll have various configurations that you can work with to get the maximum amount of crews in target and guns on target during the match. I actually support this entirely. This is good. They've made changes based on feedback. They have a good justification. They are giving you a better lineup by giving you these as separate researchable vehicles as opposed to just being an add-on kit. All good. You get a better lineup out of it. That's my opinion. Hit me with your feedback in the comments below. I'm not going to get offended. Anti-radiation missiles as countermeasures against SAMs. And this one, they actually make a few good points, and I want to make sure that we touch on them. It's a complex type of weapon, and in our opinion, Gaijins, rather overrated in the eyes of our players. And this is actually a very well-supported position to be in. Early anti-radiation missiles were actually very poor as far as locking on to a radiation source and destroying it. They were intended, as they say, for large anti-aircraft missile systems, not for small ones that were localized in the same way. So they were looking for the big signals from the big stationary setups. And that was what those early anti-radiation missiles were designed for. They have improved over the years, but the early ones, not so much. This is, in addition, the short-range SAMs may operate in a different frequency range than what the anti-radiation missile actual coverage is. So you may not even be able to use them in that regard. So I actually see this, and I would love to see anti-radiation missiles. I don't think it is the panacea that most people think it is. That said, I want the threat of the possibility, much like I want radar jamming, which they do mention later. Radar jamming, electronic countermeasures that actually put out that detect and counter the radar signals and other lock-on methods, not just flares and chaff, but actually interrupt and counter them. I would love to see it. I think that'd be an amazing addition to the game. And I would still love to see anti-radiation missiles, because just being able to threaten an anti-radiation missile to an SPA, even a bad one, is more than what we're getting right now, which is nothing. I'm going to end with their paragraph here. However, we still consider the anti-radiation missile systems interesting as the gameplay and balancing option, so the further research of this type of weapon is still in our plans. If we discover new data on the anti-radiation missile operating modes, they might be added to the game, same as other radio warfare means such as ESM pods and jammers. Yes, please get that information as best you can and get them into the game, because that's going to be that's when things are going to get real interesting. It'll be definitely a check and counter check and counter, and we'll have a definite progression of those capabilities. And finally, increasing the respawn cost of SAM SPAGs. Indeed, they say, we consider such a rise for long-range SAM systems, but the decision to be made after receiving first data of their efficiency analysis. In other words, get ready to receive the Pantsir S1, and if it looks like it's doing a little too good, they might just increase its respawn cost. And I would expect that to happen, genuinely, because of the options around that. So expect to see some SAM SPAG respawn cost going up in the near future. That's everything for today. Let me know what you think of everything in the comments below. I will be reading your comments, responding to those I can, and putting that little heart on anyone I can't. But I want to see what you have to say. You never know when I'll be able to use that to come back and put into the next video on the topic. Thank you very much for joining me today. You have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you in War Thunder.